What's up, Collide? Welcome back to another week of our series where we have been looking at 4 things that every single one of us has and what it looks like to trust God with those things. Today, we're gonna be talking about what it looks like to trust God with our life. You may be thinking, well, that's pretty incredibly non-specific. What does that even mean? And that's exactly why we wanna talk about this. Because sometimes we hear, trust God with your life, and you think about like maybe praying the prayer of salvation and having Him save us from our sins. But we can and should trust God with so much more than that. Today we're talking about a very practical, day-by-day kind of trust that we should have in God. And I want to look at a story in the biblical book of Matthew that has a super real example of this kind of trust. So open with me to the book of Matthew, chapter 14, verse 25. And while you get there, what you should know is that Jesus had just had a really long day of performing miracles and teaching, and he and his disciples were kind of at the end of their day. And so Jesus told his disciples to take a boat across a lake, and as they're doing this, a huge storm comes up on their boat, and the wind is howling and the waves were heavy, and the disciples were in major trouble. And then this happens. So let's read together Matthew 14, verse 25. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. They were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost!" And I just want to pause here because I just love how human the disciples were. I don't know if you've ever realized that when you were reading the Bible. The disciples literally believed in ghosts more than they believed that this healer, teacher, Son of Man, Messiah could walk on water. They were like, no, that's not possible, but a ghost. Ooh. I don't know, it just makes me shocked. Anyway, verse 27, here's what it says. But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. All right, we just got to talk about this because this is why. What a huge display of trust that Peter just showed us. I mean, Peter shows us firsthand that we can trust God with our life. He showed us that because he trusted Jesus with his literal life. He said, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to walk on water," which, by the way, is something no one had ever done as of like 3 minutes ago before Jesus did it. So he's like, hey, this is a thing now. Like, if this is you, tell me to come with you and I'll join you. Jesus says, go for it. And Peter walks on water. And if that's not trust, man, like, I don't know what is. And it makes me think about my own life. It makes me think, like, what are the things that are causing me to stay in the boat? What are the parts of my life that I'm not trusting God with? Am I trusting that what God says only when it's comfortable? Like, all right, God, I'll trust you when you say I should love my neighbor as myself. I'm cool with that. But love your enemies? I'm gonna stay in the boat on that one. Or God, I'll trust you when you say I shouldn't murder. That's generally good advice. But like, telling me to be slow to anger, that's just not realistic. I'm gonna stay in the boat on that one. God, I'll trust you when you say I should honor you with my body, but fixing my thoughts on what's pure, that just feels like a waste of time. I'm gonna stay in the boat. See, Peter could have said, I'll trust that it's you walking on water, but there's no way that I can do it. I'm gonna stay in the boat. But he didn't. Peter got out of the boat and he walked on water. But the story doesn't end there. See, I want you to check out verse 30. Here's what it says. But when Peter saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" And I just think there's so much power in this short interaction at the end of this miracle, because Peter shows us that we can trust God with our life, but he also shows us how easy it is to let other things distract us. Distractions will come, bad days will happen, temptations will show up, doubts will creep in. For Peter, the waves kept roaring. But when these things come up, it becomes that much more important that we focus on Jesus and trust him. You see, for Peter, refocusing on Jesus was as simple as talking to him. "Lord, save me." For you, refocusing on Jesus may be that too. You've stopped talking to God, or you never have, and it's It's time for you to do that or do that more. Maybe for you, refocusing on Jesus means opening the Bible and reading the stories of Jesus' life and learning directly from him. Maybe for you, refocusing on Jesus means that you gotta change the way you've been doing life. You gotta switch out what music you listen to, what shows you watch, what friends you spend the most time with. Look, I don't know what trusting God with your life looks like specifically for you today, but I know it's not just a once and done thing. It can't be. See, the ending to this story shows us that trusting God is a day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment decision that we all need to make. Trusting God has more for us outside the boat. Peter trusted God with his life enough to step out of the boat, and he saw God do something amazing. So my question for you is, what are you missing by staying in the boat and not trusting God? Collide. We love you, and we'll see you next time.